Tazisms.com. Celebrate your pride. You should love the way you were born inside. Celebrate the day freedom found its way. Destiny was yours to claim. Use the code PRIDE26 for a discount you can seek. Get a shirt, a mug, a bag, and more to be free. Isms.com has so much in store. In our unity, we truly soar. Love is love forevermore. A more equal future is our goal. Tazisms.com. Celebrate your pride. Celebrate your pride. Celebrate your pride. You should love the way you were born inside. Celebrate the day freedom found its way. Destiny was yours to claim. Use the code PRIDE26 for a discount you can see. Get a shirt, a mug, a bag, and more to be free. Isms.com has so much in store. In our unity, we truly soar. Love is love forevermore. A more equal future is our goal. Isms.com has so
All right. Thank you for joining me here for today's updates. Sorry. A few messages coming in regarding last night. Oops. Got a few updates here regarding the Epstein Maxwell Files and all things incorporated along with it. Let's start off with this right here.
Bin Sulayem sent the torture video to Epstein. This is in 2009. So Epstein was saying that. Where are you? Are you okay? I love the torture video. Jeez. I am in China. I'll be in the US second week of May. What the fuck, man? And why is his name redacted? Why would your name be redacted if you're not a victim? Like, this is what's crazy about all this. Like, how come you redact some people and you don't redact other people? Like, what is this? This is not good. None of this is good for this administration. It looks fucking terrible. It looks terrible. It looks terrible for Trump when he was saying that none of this was real. This is all a hoax. This is not a hoax. Like, did you not know? Maybe he didn't know, if you want to be charitable. But this is definitely not a hoax. And if you've got redacted people's names and these people aren't victims, you're not protecting the victim. So what are you doing?
Right.
And how come all this shit is not released?
And it gets worse from here because Joe Rogan is absolutely correct in that statement. Trump is doing a terrible job, not only with the Epstein files, but with this administration as a whole and their lack of transparency. Especially when we look through the Epstein files and find out the Trump admin is compromised with people such as Howard Lutnick in this clip, where Trump calls everything we've read boring stuff and Howard Lutnick laughs next to him. This comes before Howard Lutnick was also caught lying about the Epstein files, saying he thought Epstein was a gross person, but then we got emails saying he was asking Epstein to go to his island with his kids, and he actually went. So now Kash Patel, Pam Bondi, and Howard Lutnick has been destroyed and decimated in these hearings. Every single lie they tried to tell was rebutted, and the truth came to light, and MAGA is now seeing them for what they are. Speaking of Pam Bondi, she seems to be buddy-buddy with a lot of people in the Epstein files, to include this guy whose family owns a child foundation. But what get to that in a second, because this clip is resurfacing of Trump calling the Epstein files pretty boring stuff, to include Kash Patel lying to us saying that there's no evidence that Epstein tracked anybody to anybody, and he lied under oath. They're all getting caught lying under oath. Now let's take a look at Trump trying to downplay his crimes, because he knew exactly what was going to be in those files. His Trump name appears more than 1 million times in the unredacted Epstein files, and there's 3 million total we haven't seen. Let's take a look at this clip.
President, I know you've urged people to move on, but I'm curious, why do you think your supporters in particular have been so interested in the Epstein story and so upset about how it's been handled?
I don't understand why they would be so interested. He's dead for a long time. He was never a big factor in terms of life. I don't understand what the interest or what the fascination is. I really don't. And the credible information's been given. Don't forget, we went through years of the Mueller witch hunt and all of the different things, the Steele dossier, which was all fake. All that information was fake. But I don't understand why the Jeffrey Epstein case would be of interest to anybody. It's pretty boring stuff. It's sordid, but it's boring. And I don't understand why it keeps going. I think really only pretty bad people, including fake news, want to keep something like that going. But credible information, anything that's credible, I would say let them have it.
Trump doesn't seem to understand why America wants to know why there is an Epstein elite class of billionaire was running a PDF ring for years. A PDF ring that Trump, Howard Lutnick, and so many other people who are currently in a position of power in this country are running. These same exact PDFs who lied time and time again saying they are not in it, they hated Epstein, but then more and more documents come up with Howard Lutnick referring to a bunch of teenagers as pizza slices to Epstein, and Donald Trump's victims always ending up dying the second they make a report about what Donald Trump or Epstein did to them. There was a lot of...
Now, the end of that, very much so, conspiracy theories. There are purported victims of Donald Trump that are still walking around, living, breathing, everything. Donald Trump, let's be real, we cannot in one breath talk about how incredibly stupid he has and how little forethought he has, and then the next breath talk about how he is able to off all of these people in order to protect himself. Come on. But that's not the only update that we have. We also have Marjorie Taylor Greene. Oops. Purportedly calling Trump a traitor. One moment here. There we go.
Julia turns heartfelt moments into handcrafted jewelry that's uniquely yours.
I'm not surprised by this news, Caitlin, because I also had a very uncomfortable phone call with the president before the release of the Epstein files, where he told me that his friends would get hurt if the files were released. And I'll never forget that. I'll also never forget the text message he sent me when I told him that my son's life was being threatened because he was calling me a traitor because I fought to release the Epstein files, where he told me that I deserved it. And so this doesn't shock me that his team was paralyzed. But I tell you what it is. It's absolutely ridiculous and unforgivable. We're talking about pedophiles and rapists of the elite class of people that never get held accountable for anything. So if they were paralyzed and scared and didn't know what to do about releasing the Epstein files, these people are absolutely absurd. They don't deserve the American people's trust. As a matter of fact, we should consider them as they should be considered traitors. They're traitors. The ones that refuse to release the Epstein files want to cover up for pedophiles and rapists and all sorts of disgusting things in these files. Those are the traitors to the American people, and they should be ashamed of themselves.
Some people can develop a conscience. Some people can just decide to switch. But moving on. I was Ghislaine Maxwell's slave. Former assistant to vile pedo Jeffrey Epstein blasts his disgraced lover for treating her like a minion. This comes from RadarOnline.com. Jeffrey Epstein's longtime assistant claims she was one of the sex fiend's biggest victims and faced especially harsh treatment from his lover and madam Ghislaine Maxwell, radaronline.com can reveal Sarah Kellen worked for and was allegedly abused by the sex traffickers for nearly 20 years. Here's the thing. Let's not forget, in one of our last updates from last week, Sarah Kellen saying she wants to put out a book, but then she doesn't want to release her get out of jail free card. She was listed as one of the co-conspirators in the sweetheart deal by Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey is dead. She could tell the truth about Jeffrey Epstein. Other victims of solely or predominantly Jeffrey Epstein have said on the record that they are able to speak up because he's dead. Their fear went away, a lot of it. Now, do I believe that Ghislaine Maxwell was a madam and a vile monster? Yes. It has been confirmed from other victims that she victimized them as well, that she recruited them. Okay? That she was more of a mastermind behind this than a minion or anything else. But it's also been confirmed by a lot of overlapping victims that Sarah Kellen was a seemingly willing recruiter and she victimized them as well. She would pretend to be a number of these girls' friends, confidants, to keep them in the fold. Kellen, who was nicknamed the Lieutenant due to her close proximity to Epstein, was privy to many of his nefarious activities and allegedly scheduled the massages that Epstein used to sexually abuse his suspected victims. Earlier last week, Kellen testified before the politicians responsible for the ongoing House Oversight Committee investigation into Epstein's empire. The now 46-year-old sat for a lengthy interview after being cleared as a co-conspirator as part of Epstein's 2008 non-prosecution agreement and held little back. She held a lot back. Here's the thing. If somebody includes me in a non-prosecution deal, I'm telling everything as soon as I find out about that deal. I'm telling everything, even if I was terrified, even if somebody convinced me because of lack of knowledge of the judicial system, because I'm not an attorney, that things that I witnessed, things that I was originally told were a part of my job, now they're like, oh, this is illegal. You were in it with me. If I go down, you're going down. Once I would have gotten wind of, because Sarah Kellen did admit that she wasn't initially told that she was included in the sweetheart deal, but she did find out. Once I would have found out, baby, I would have been touring like an off-Broadway show. You hear me? I would have been singing for any and everybody. You wouldn't have even had to say that you were willing to listen to me. I would have told you, okay? I would have wrote it on everything that I could have. Huh? She targeted much of her vitriol towards Maxwell, whom she called the real monster in the relationship. And again, multiple things can be true at one time. I was a literal indentured slave. I'm gonna need y'all to stop using that term. Either you're an indentured servant or you're a slave. Kellen stated. In fact, she even referred to me as her slave and minion. I had zero power or authority. I was there only to serve and to submit, but you were getting paid. You had your own money, your own bank account. You were also an adult when this happened. And no, I'm not victim blaming. You could have gotten up and left. Unlike a lot of these girls who had their passports confiscated, purportedly, you were one of the people taking passports. So they trusted you enough that you had your own things. Now, coming from the independent.com, Trump took out the Epstein Republicans, but not his Jeffrey Epstein problem. We still got 7 months. Last Tuesday, Representative Nancy Mace out of South Carolina lost the Republican primary for governor in South Carolina. Mace lost partially because President Donald Trump Sr. endorsed Lieutenant Governor Pamela Evitt. Here's the thing. I'll never understand reversing your motion. I will never understand the politicians that make it all the way up to the federal level and then go backwards to want to become a governor. And before you go, well, being a governor is a great plateau to becoming president. Why are you going in reverse? The actual power, what people should, if that's what you want, power and to say so, Capitol Hill. But I digress. But also Nancy Mace has made it known, oh, I'm an advocate for the victims, especially of intimate assault. Why did you make a mockery during your time on the House Oversight Committee regarding the Epstein Maxwell victims and this case? And why are you so quick to want to leave now? Like, if that was your plan to campaign and not really take this seriously, you could have just been a silent member. You could have asked your questions with no pomp and circumstance and kept it pushing. I think it had less to do with the endorsement and more to do with people, because Trump's political weight, he's a lame duck. But I think more and more people, they're tired of the pomp and circumstance. They're tired of the show. And those that were entertained by the show and viewed the show as a win or loss are noticing we're not, our lives aren't getting any better by all of this posturing. Almost immediately, Mace said she likely lost Trump's endorsement because she had joined the bipartisan discharge petition drafted by Representatives Thomas Massey and Ro Khanna to force a vote to release files related to Jeffrey Epstein. Here's the thing. Republicans en masse could have supported this. They just didn't have to show up to the press conference. They didn't have to try to center other people's trauma and needed legislation and needed investigation around themselves. They didn't have to. Because if they would have just voted for this and stopped all the back and forth, we wouldn't be talking about it. Well, talking about who was Republican, who was Democrat. That's what I mean. This came even though during the process, Mace explicitly told The Independent, no one has threatened me, and that the president hadn't threatened me, and the president didn't ask me to get off the discharge petition. The loss means Mace, the moderate turned MAGA Republican who took to harassing Representative Sarah McBride, Democrat out of Delaware, the first openly trans member of Congress, will not be returning to Washington. Good. You can't say that you're a girl's girl and you're here for the female victims when you're victimizing another woman. Mace's loss makes her the third House Republican to lose their primary after challenging Trump Sr. on Epstein. Massey lost his last month, and Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene resigned months ago after a public breakup with Trump Sr. regarding Epstein. And Trump Sr. is already targeting Representative Lauren Boebert out of Colorado for supporting Massey, even though the filing deadline to challenge her already passed. The retribution series continues, Massey told The Independent on Wednesday. The good thing is those three women helped me get a law passed, not a subpoena, not a resolution. The president signed it. Trump Sr. has spent an inordinate amount of time focusing on tamping down the internal party revolt on Epstein. And on Wednesday, an excerpt of the New York Times' Jonathan Swan and Maggie Haberman's new book allegedly revealed just how much time. The excerpt reports that Trump's close advisors, including Vice President J.D. Vance, then Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, and White House Chief of Staff Susie Wiles, huddled in the Situation Room to figure out how to handle Epstein, with then Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel joining by speakerphone. The new Swan Haberman excerpt reported that the Trump administration viewed this as a major public relations crisis. With Vance even reportedly suggesting that Tucker Carlson, the right-wing media provocateur, interview Epstein's ex-girlfriend and accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell. But despite Trump Sr.'s retribution politically, there is little sign that the Epstein story is going away anytime soon. If anything, as then Deputy FBI Director Dan Bongino said, according to the book excerpt, it's become Trump Sr.'s Iran-Contra. It may be worse than that. It's because white men don't learn, and they especially don't learn from fellow white men. They will not look at what worked and what didn't work. Instead of taking accountability or just not taking accountability and not hindering things, not publicly anyway. If he wouldn't have postured and made all these promises and then turned around and was like, oh, there's nothing to see here. No, if he would have simply said, you know what, DOJ, investigate it to the fullest, and then behind closed doors, outline who would be investigated and who wouldn't, none of us would be the wiser, and all of us would have been like, oh, he's such a great guy. And we could have seen people get arrested. We could have had our perp walks. We could have had court dates lined up and all this stuff. And we, Joe Schmo public, wouldn't have known any better. Yes, the victims know who victimized them. But if you see ongoing things, even the victims would have been like, oh, well, they'll get to my accuser because look at them going down the list. By the time we would have realized we were manipulated, Trump would have either been out of the office because his term was up, dead, or what have you. The Department of Justice and FBI's 2-page memo that said that no client list existed for the convicted sex offender who died by suicide while in jail awaiting trial. Just this week, a pop-up facility in D.C. called the Donald J. Trump and Epstein Memorial Reading Room opened. The Epstein saga, meanwhile, ultimately played a role in the ouster of Bondi as Attorney General. That led to Trump Sr. making Blanche, also the president's still current personal attorney, his acting Attorney General, and nominating Blanche to be the new top official at the Department of Justice. Blanche's confirmation hearing will begin next month. Expect Blanche to be grilled about it, especially given that he said that no more Epstein files will be released. Democrats have gone all in on talking about Epstein ahead of the 2026 midterms. Can we stop making this about elections? Do it because it is in your scope to do. Do it because it is the right thing to do. Do it because you really take your role as a public servant seriously. Just a thought. And our final update for today, also coming from Radar Online, Epstein victim in Buckingham Palace, Andrew Windsor facing yet more shame for entertaining trafficking survivor in Queen's quarters. Andrew Mountbatten Windsor is facing huge renewed scrutiny after newly released testimony revealed a former assistant to Jeffrey Epstein, who says she suffered years of abuse at the pedophile's hands, attended a dinner at the royal's private apartment in Buckingham Palace. Kellen, who worked for Epstein for more than a decade, beginning in 2001, has long been portrayed in court documents and media reports as a key figure within his organization. However, in her testimony, she rejected the characterization, describing herself instead as a victim of repeated abuse. No, you're not. Newly surfaced transcripts of her testimony detail encounters with several high-profile figures, including shamed Andrew, 66, and his former wife, Sarah Ferguson, also 66. You mean his on-again, off-again wife? I think they just divorced so that they could be swingers or polyamory. There's nothing to substantiate that. That's just my thought. That's it. Newly surfaced transcripts. Andrew has repeatedly denied wrongdoing, and Kellen said she never witnessed him acting inappropriately. Kellen is not honest. Sources familiar with the testimony said the revelations are likely to generate fresh questions about the extent of Epstein's access to elite social circles during the early 2000s. Allegedly. Yes, Jay, allegedly. One source said the significance of this testimony is not that it alleges misconduct by Andrew, but that it illustrates how closely individuals from Epstein's world were able to move within influential environments. Many people will find it striking that someone who now describes herself as a victim of exploitation was present at private royal gatherings during that period. It underlines how little was publicly understood about Epstein's network at the time. And that's another thing why I don't believe Kellen. And again, no, I'm not victim blaming. You can criticize someone and notice and recognize that they are a co-conspirator and not be victim blaming. People are so afraid of being considered a victim blamer that you're allowing perpetrators to hide behind the cloak of victim. This is a woman who was so ingratiated in the inner circle of Epstein and Maxwell that she knew Maxwell's connections, because the royals, those connections came from Maxwell. We've confirmed that time and time again. That she can chill with them. She's being invited into spheres where even if she's like, oh, well, Fergie and Andrew and Andy, that's their homeboys. There are other people she could have gone to for help. And to avoid a scandal, that family, they wouldn't have said nothing publicly, but baby, she would have been living over in England somewhere, no longer there. Not to mention, you worked for him for 10 years. And previously, Kellen, Tazzy Farms remembered, you said you didn't believe the stories when he was originally arrested, and 2, you enjoyed your pay and your flexible schedule. So which one is it, Home Skillet? You were a victim, or the pay and the schedule was too comfy cozy for you? And as somebody who once had a boss that they started to notice seemed a little sketchy, and it's like the sketchier the boss, the more they are willing to pay, the more flexible and understanding they are with their schedule. I had to leave. Now, fortunately, he was not hurting people intimately, wasn't abusing no kids or nothing like that. I found out. And it's not like this was any better, but just some financial scamming and screwing that he had going on. I was like, glad I left when I did. Glad I left when I did. Because when he came to me, I couldn't even legally buy a drink. And he wanted to give me responsibilities and all this stuff that I'm like, I ain't even worked here long enough to really know how to do these things. What you mean? Yeah, it's because looking back, and after things that were explained to me by professionals, yeah, I would have been a co-conspirator, or I would have went down with the Titanic and he would have been on the lifeboat just waving at me. Okay, because it would have been my signature, my fingerprint, so to speak, all over everything. And again, Kellen was named as a co-conspirator, meaning she would not have been prosecuted. She could have told. She could tell now. She's still not telling on Epstein. He dead, y'all. And it's not like, I know some people who have passed on, who have done myself and other people dirty. And in me telling my truth and trying to convince other people to tell their truth so that they can heal, they're people, because they love them so much, were like, no, there's no way. And I'm like, no, you know that you lying to yourself about this person, because I've witnessed them do you dirty also. Epstein only has his brother who's willing to fight for his damn reputation. To a certain point, Ghislaine Maxwell is willing. But everybody else is like, oh, he ain't shit. I ain't want to really be around him. Like, blah, 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 blah. Like, everybody else got diarrhea of the mouth. Even those that was humping around with the man have been saying, like, so girl, tell it like a TI is. The testimony offers another glimpse into the overlap between Epstein's associates and prominent public figures. That alone is likely to attract considerable attention. Again, that has nothing to do with Epstein. Those are Ghislaine Maxwell's connections. That's a part of her network. Let's divvy things up the way that they're supposed to be. And again, if you can speak with such vigor and vitriol, rightfully so, seems to be earned from everything that I've seen regarding Maxwell, that's alive and kicking it, why can't you say nothing about Jeffrey Epstein? And the more we go into this, just like my initial assessment, Maxwell seems to be the real ringleader. Now, one minor update. Few updates ago, we talked about it coming out in these Epstein Maxwell files that Epstein had attended a party, one of Andrew's parties. So here it is. Andrew addressed Epstein's attendance at the party during his 2019 BBC Newsnight interview. He said, and I quote, "Certainly I wasn't aware when the invitation was issued what was going on in the United States, and I wasn't aware until the media picked up on it because he never said anything about it." And again, not to make excuses for people, but I need folks to realize, do you know what's going on with anybody in the UK? A celebrity, a common person, anything? A lot of y'all didn't even know who Epstein was until you found out there was a connection with Trump. And even with that, a lot of people didn't know that he was a purported financier, which is fine. I need people to put things in perspective with this. Well, how did they not know? Child, look, I just found out that the daughter of a family friend is about to give birth, like any day now. Because let's face it, ever since MySpace, there are certain people, they don't pick up the phone anymore. They don't text anymore. They put everything online. And the way algorithms are set up, you're not going to see everything. But that does it for today's updates. I will see you all shortly at 3:30 Eastern, 2:30 Central for the Taz Effect Daily News in a way you didn't know you could use. And today is Mutual Aid Monday. So I will see you then. As always, be good to yourself and try to be good to others.